A speaker hidden in the grass plays a sound, and within seconds, something extraordinary happens. Every animal within earshot scatters, not slowly, not cautiously, immediately, completely, as if the most dangerous thing on the entire continent had just announced itself. Researchers running this exact experiment in South Africa weren't playing the roar of a lion. They weren't playing gunfire, growls, or any predator sound at all. They were playing a recording of humans talking. Calm, ordinary, conversational human voices. And it emptied the landscape faster than anything else they tested, including actual lions hunting nearby. Here's the question worth sitting with before we go any further. We are, by almost every physical measurement, one of the most poorly equipped large mammals on the planet. No claws built for killing, no fangs, no armored hide, no raw speed. Nothing about our bodies suggests we belong anywhere near the top of a food chain. So why does the entire animal kingdom seem to know, on some instinctive level, that the sound of a human voice is something to run from? Here's where the story gets uncomfortable, because it didn't start this way at all. For an enormous portion of human evolutionary history, we weren't predators feared by other animals. We were prey, hunted by them. Fossil evidence from early hominid remains shows puncture wounds and bite patterns consistent with attacks from leopards, hyenas, and other large carnivores that shared our ancestral environments. Paleoanthropologists studying early hominid sites have found skull fragments with puncture marks that align almost perfectly with the canine spacing of ancient big cats. Think about that for a moment. Some of the oldest human ancestors we have physical evidence of weren't dying of old age or disease. They were being eaten. For hundreds of thousands of years, that was simply the reality of being human. We existed somewhere in the middle of the food chain, vulnerable, slow, unarmored, completely outmatched by nearly everything around us that actually wanted to kill us. So somewhere between that vulnerable starting point and lions fleeing the sound of our voices, something happened. Something significant enough to completely rewrite the relationship between humans and every other apex predator on the planet. What most people don't realize is that the shift had almost nothing to do with our bodies getting stronger. Our bodies barely changed at all. Here's where things get interesting, because the actual answer is almost the opposite of what you'd expect. We didn't become dangerous by becoming more like the predators around us. We became dangerous by becoming something the natural world had never encountered before. A species capable of thinking together. Most predators on Earth coordinate through instinct. Wolves hunting in a pack, lions hunting in a pride. These are sophisticated behaviors, but they're largely automatic, refined over millions of years of evolutionary pressure rather than consciously planned in the moment. Humans developed something categorically different. The ability to imagine a strategy that didn't yet exist, communicate that imagined plan to other individuals using abstract language, assign specific roles within it, and trust that everyone involved would execute their part even when they couldn't see each other doing it. That's an almost unfair advantage when you really sit with it. Imagine being an animal whose entire evolutionary defense system was built around predicting the behavior of other animals using instinct, scent, sound, and visible positioning. And then encountering a creature whose attacks weren't instinctive at all, coordinated from a distance, planned in advance, executed with a kind of group precision that didn't match any pattern your species had ever needed to defend against. Here's the part that should genuinely shift how you see this. Evolutionary biologists studying cooperative behavior argue that this capacity for shared, abstract planning may be one of the rarest cognitive developments in the entire history of life on Earth. Not just unusual, borderline unprecedented. We didn't outmuscle the animal kingdom. We outthought it, collectively, in a way nothing else alive had ever needed to prepare for. But coordination alone doesn't fully explain the fear. There's a second piece, and it's arguably even stranger. Nearly every apex predator that ever existed needed proximity to kill. Claws require contact, teeth require contact. Even the most lethal big cats accept real physical risk in the final seconds of a hunt, exposed to injury from prey fighting for its life at close range. Predation, throughout almost all of natural history, came with a built-in cost for the predator. Humans broke that arrangement completely. The development of thrown weapons, and later increasingly sophisticated projectile tools, allowed early humans to kill from distances no claw or fang could match, almost entirely removing the physical risk predators had always accepted as the price of hunting. You no longer needed to be stronger than your target. You needed to be accurate, coordinated, and far enough away to stay safe while doing it. Here's the genuinely unsettling part. If you imagine this from the perspective of the animal being hunted, Every defense mechanism that species had spent millions of years perfecting, speed, claws, raw physical power, simply stopped being relevant. Something was injuring or killing members of their species from a distance their entire defensive toolkit had never needed to account for. Researchers studying predator psychology suggest that threats following unfamiliar, unpredictable patterns tend to generate stronger, faster-spreading avoidance behavior than threats that follow rules a species can learn to anticipate. A danger you can prepare for is manageable. A danger that breaks every rule you know how to prepare for is something else entirely. We weren't simply added to the list of things to fear. We rewrote what fear needed to account for in the first place. Here's the part of this story that genuinely surprises most people, including many who study it closely. You'd reasonably assume predators learned to fear humans the slow way, generation after generation of direct, repeated encounters gradually shaping inherited caution. But research into predator behavior reveals something stranger happening alongside that explanation. In that same South African study, lions reacted with noticeably more fear toward recordings of human voices than toward recordings of other lions, including unfamiliar males whose presence would normally be treated as a serious territorial threat. The fear response toward humans wasn't just present, it was disproportionately stronger than fear directed at an actual rival predator within their own species. Some researchers now describe humans as functioning like a super predator across many ecosystems, a presence so consistently lethal, unpredictable, and difficult to anticipate that animals adjust their behavior around the mere possibility of us being nearby, not only confirmed danger. Avoidance behavior shows up even in regions with relatively limited direct historical conflict between humans and local wildlife, suggesting this caution spreads and reinforces itself with remarkable speed across populations. Think about what that actually implies. In much of the natural world today, the fear we generate isn't really a response to specific things we've done, it's a response to what we represent. Total unpredictability, combined with a level of coordinated lethal capability that doesn't resemble anything else in their evolutionary memory. And here's where the story takes a turn most people never stop to consider. We earned this reputation through hundreds of thousands of years spent as, quite literally, one of the most disruptive forces most ecosystems on the planet had ever encountered. And yet the overwhelming majority of modern humans will live an entire life without ever directly confronting a wild predator, without ever needing the coordination, the strategy, or the constant calculated awareness our ancestors relied on simply to survive an ordinary day. The fear we generated never went away. If anything, our capabilities only expanded further beyond anything our ancestors could have imagined. But our personal, lived relationship to that power has almost entirely vanished from daily experience. Ancient humans understood exactly how dangerous they were, because that understanding was inseparable from staying alive. Modern humans largely move through the world without that awareness at all, occupying a strange, almost contradictory position, statistically one of the most effective predators the planet has ever produced, while psychologically experiencing ourselves as comparatively harmless, vulnerable, even fragile, in the quiet rhythm of everyday life. Somewhere, right now, an animal hears the sound of a human voice carried across open ground. It has likely never personally encountered a human being in its life. And it still knows, instinctively, completely, without needing a single direct experience to confirm it, that the safest available option is to run. Maybe that's the clearest mirror evolution has ever built for us. The fiercest predators that ever lived figured out exactly what we're capable of, long before we fully understood it ourselves. The only species that seems to have quietly forgotten is us.